I remember the phone call more clearly than the sterile white walls of the hospital room where I was lying. My body was weak, stitched back together after surgery, but nothing compared to what that call did to me. My hands still shake when I think of it. I had been dozing off, the painkillers blurring time, when my phone buzzed on the plastic tray beside me. I thought it was David, my husband of 16 years, maybe checking in, maybe asking if I needed something when I was discharged. But when I pressed the phone to my ear, the voice wasn't his. It was a woman's voice, sharp, cold, dripping with a kind of smug cruelty I will never forget. "Your daughters aren't with you anymore," she said. "They're with me. They're with us now." I froze. My throat tightened. At first I thought it was some kind of mistake, a wrong number, a cruel prank. But then I heard a laugh on the other end, high-pitched, mocking. "Don't bother calling David. He's with me now. And the girls? They'll learn soon enough who their real mother is." Then came the sound of the line disconnecting, a digital click that sliced into my chest. I tried to call back, again and again, but every time I heard nothing but her laughter echoing in my mind. When I finally dialed David, my husband, the man who swore to love me until death, he picked up after the third ring. His voice wasn't panicked, wasn't guilty, wasn't even surprised. It was cold, distant. "Rachel," he said flatly, "don't make this harder on yourself. You're not fit to raise them anymore, and I'm going to make sure you never get them back. You'll lose your rights, permanently." Then he hung up, just like that. I remember ripping the 4 out of my arm, blood seeping onto the sheets as I stumbled out of the bed. Nurses rushed toward me, their voices rising in panic, but all I could hear was the echo of David's voice, and that woman's laughter. My daughters. My 3 beautiful daughters. Mia, 14, Claire, 11, and little Sophie, just 7, gone. Vanished while I lay helpless in a hospital bed. Do you know what it feels like to realize your children have been stolen from you? To know they've been taken not by strangers, but by the very man who once swore to protect them? There aren't words strong enough. Rage, terror, despair. None of them touched the edges of that abyss. That night I screamed so much the nurses had to sedate me. When I woke the next morning, the world felt different, dimmer, hollow, because my girls weren't there. Their beds at home were empty. Their laughter no longer filled the kitchen. My life had been amputated, but the worst part wasn't just that David had left me. It was that he left me for her, Samantha, a woman I barely knew existed until a year ago. He told me she was a colleague. I didn't question it. 16 years of marriage blinds you like that. You want to believe even when the lipstick on his shirt isn't yours, even when he smells like perfume that never came from your dresser. I had forgiven him once. Forgiven the late nights, the lies. I told myself he was tired, stressed, working too hard. I told myself every marriage had cracks. But then Samantha appeared in full force, not as a shadow but as a presence. And when I got sick, when I ended up in that hospital bed, she was there, circling like a vulture. And she took them, my children. I went to the police, my voice hoarse, my body still stitched and bruised. I told them my husband had abducted my daughters. They looked at me with blank eyes, shuffling papers, asking cold bureaucratic questions. Are you legally divorced? Does he have joint custody? Is there evidence of abuse? Evidence? The evidence was in my chest, in my bones, in the empty rooms of my house. But the police don't operate on heartbreak. They operate on documents, signatures, court orders. And David knew that. He knew how to twist the system, how to use my illness against me. 2 weeks later, I got my first call from Samantha. She used David's number. When I answered, my heart leapt, thinking it would be one of my girls, maybe Sophie's tiny voice asking when she could come home. But it was her again. "You'll never see them," she hissed. "You're pathetic. Do you know what they say about you? They say you were always too weak, too selfish, you were never there for them." I screamed into the phone until my throat tore raw, but she only laughed and hung up. I didn't tell anyone about that call. Not my parents, not my friends, what few I had left. Because who would believe me? I could already feel the judgment in their eyes. Rachel, the abandoned wife. Rachel, the woman too weak to keep her family together. Rachel, the hysterical mother claiming her children were kidnapped, when in reality, maybe they just chose to stay with their father. But I know the truth. I know my daughters didn't choose this. They were taken, manipulated, brainwashed by a man who wanted to erase me from their lives. The nights are the hardest. I lie awake replaying every detail of their childhoods. Mia's first dance recital, her arms trembling as she spun across the stage. Claire's laughter when she lost her first tooth and demanded the tooth fairy leave a $20 bill. Sophie's tiny hands clapping when she first learned to ride her bike without training wheels. These aren't just memories, they're ghosts. Ghosts that haunt every corner of my empty house. I walk into their bedrooms sometimes, unable to stop myself. The beds are still made the way they left them. Posters on the walls, stuffed animals slumped against pillows, books half read on the nightstands. Dust gathers now like time itself is erasing them from me. But I will not let time erase them. 2 years, that's how long it's been. 2 years since I last saw their faces, since I last kissed their foreheads goodnight. 2 years of calls that go unanswered, of messages filled with venom and threats. 2 years of hearing David's voice in my head, cold and certain. You're going to lose them forever. But here's the thing David doesn't understand. A mother never loses her children. Not really. Not in her heart, not in her soul. And no matter what he tells them, no matter what lies he feeds them, I know the bond we share cannot be severed. I don't care what I have to do. Hire lawyers, beg judges, dig through the mud of his lies. I don't care if I have to stand in court and relive every intimate humiliation, every betrayal, every wound he ever inflicted. I don't care if I have to face Samantha and her poisonous smirk, hear her recount my supposed failures as a wife and mother. I will do it, because my daughters are worth every drop of blood, every tear, every sleepless night. This is not the end. This is the beginning. I will find them. And when I do, no court, no man, no mistress will ever keep me from holding them again. Do you hear me, David? Do you hear me, Samantha? You stole my daughters, and I am coming for them. I used to think time was my ally, that every passing day would bring me closer to justice, closer to my daughters, closer to tearing down the lies David and Samantha built around them. But time is not an ally. Time is a weapon, and in David's hands, it became the sharpest blade of all. When the police closed their notebooks and told me it was a custody dispute, not a kidnapping, I wanted to scream. What do you call it when a man rips 3 children away from their mother's home, hides them, and refuses any contact? They called it legal gray area. I called it hell. I hired a lawyer with money I didn't have. Credit cards maxed, savings drained. I signed retainer agreements like a drowning woman clutching at broken wood. My lawyer, a thin, sharp-eyed woman named Angela Price, told me the truth in her office on our first meeting. You're fighting an uphill battle, she said. David has joint custody on paper. Unless you prove abuse or neglect, the court won't intervene. And Rachel, if he convinces them you're unstable or unfit, you could lose more than custody. You could lose your rights entirely. Her words sliced through me. I thought about David's threats, the way he hissed down the phone. I'll make sure you never see them again. He wasn't bluffing. He was planning. I started documenting everything. Every call from Samantha, every message from David, every voicemail dripping with venom. I kept a notebook by my bed, scrawling until my hands cramped, terrified that if I didn't record every detail, the truth itself would slip through my fingers. But truth is slippery when your opponent is a liar. 2 months after the girls were taken, a rumor reached me through a neighbor whose cousin worked at the elementary school Sophie used to attend. The rumor was simple, devastating. The girls had told teachers they didn't want to see me, that I had abandoned them. Abandoned. The word hit me harder than any punch David ever threw. Because it meant the lies were working. He was poisoning them against me. Samantha was whispering venom into their ears, twisting their memories, rewriting their childhoods. And the worst part? They were starting to believe it. At night, I heard their voices in my head, not as they were, but as David wanted them to be. Mia, calling me selfish. Claire, accusing me of choosing illness over them. Sophie, my baby, telling me she loved her new mom more. I would wake up gasping, sweat soaking my sheets, clawing at my chest as if I could rip out the pain lodged there. The courts moved slowly, like glaciers grinding down a mountain. I filed motions. David's attorney filed counters. Samantha appeared at hearings, her hand looped possessively through David's arm, her smirk aimed directly at me like a dagger. She dressed like she belonged on the cover of a magazine, sleek hair, tailored suits, while I showed up in wrinkled dresses that smelled faintly of desperation. Every time she leaned close to whisper in his ear, I wanted to leap across the courtroom and tear her away, but instead, I sat still, nails digging crescents into my palms, because one outburst would feed their story: Rachel the unstable, Rachel the unfit, Rachel the hysterical mother who didn't deserve her children. The judge ordered a psychological evaluation, for me. Not for David, not for Samantha, for me. As if I were the danger. As if being brokenhearted, grieving, and furious made me unworthy of motherhood. The psychologist was polite, soft-voiced, asking about my childhood, my marriage, my mental health. But every question felt like an accusation. Do you ever lose your temper? Do you drink? Do you feel depressed? Yes, I wanted to scream. Of course I feel depressed. My children were stolen from me. My husband betrayed me. I am living in a nightmare. But if I said it, if I admitted the raw, ugly truth, it would be written down in neat clinical handwriting and used against me. So I lied. I smiled. I told her I was fine, and inside I was crumbling. Angela warned me that custody battles were marathons, not sprints. But I didn't have the luxury of pacing myself. Every day away from my daughters was another day David could warp them, erase me, replace me. One evening as I sat in my kitchen surrounded by stacks of legal papers, my phone rang again. The number was blocked. My heart leapt. I thought maybe, just maybe, it would be one of the girls sneaking a call to tell me they missed me. But it was Samantha. Of course it was Samantha. You should stop fighting, she said, her tone syrupy sweet. The girls are happy. They have a stable home now. They don't even ask about you anymore. I bit down on my lip until I tasted blood. Let me talk to them, I begged. Please, just let me hear their voices. A pause, then a low, cruel laugh. They don't want to talk to you. They're better off without you. You were never a real mother, Rachel. You were a placeholder. I'm the one who tucks them in now. I'm the one they call mom. The line went dead. I smashed the phone against the wall, the plastic shattering like my heart. Then I sank to the floor and sobbed until dawn. I started seeing ghosts in the grocery store. Every little girl with long brown hair could have been MIA. Every child clutching a stuffed animal could have been Sophie. I chased strangers down aisles calling out their names, only to be met with confused stares and frightened parents dragging their kids away. I was unraveling, and David knew it. He filed for emergency custody, claiming I was unstable, dangerous, unfit. He presented the psychologist's report, cherry-picked and twisted, painting me as a fragile, unhinged woman on the verge of collapse. And maybe I was, but only because he pushed me there. The judge ordered supervised visitation, just 2 hours, once a week, in a sterile office with a social worker watching my every move. I hadn't seen my girls in over a year when the day finally came. I wore my best dress, I curled my hair, I brought a stuffed bunny for Sophie, a journal for Mia, and a necklace for Claire. My hands shook as I sat in that cold room, waiting for the door to open. When they walked in, my heart nearly stopped. They were taller, older, changed. Sophie hid behind Mia, clutching her sister's hand. Claire wouldn't look at me, and when I opened my arms, they didn't run to me. They stood frozen, eyes wary, as if I were a stranger. Hi, babies, I whispered, my voice trembling. It's Mommy, but Mia's voice cut through me like glass. You're not our mom. Samantha is... The words hit harder than any fist, any wound, any betrayal. My daughters had been stolen not just from my home, but from my very identity. And I realized in that moment, the battle wasn't just for custody. It was for their hearts, their memories, their souls. I walked out of that visitation trembling, the stuffed bunny still clutched in my hands. They hadn't taken it, none of them had. The walls are closing in. The system is against me. David and Samantha are rewriting the story of who I am, but I am not done. Not by a long shot. Because I am Rachel Monroe. And I am their mother. And I will burn down every wall they've built until my daughters know the truth. I once believed the worst pain in life was betrayal. When David walked out of our home, when he left me for Samantha, when he ripped our daughters from me, I thought my heart had shattered for good. But betrayal is only the beginning. The true agony is humiliation. The slow, surgical peeling away of your dignity in front of strangers who hold your future in their hands. The courtroom had become my second home. I hated every inch of it, the wooden benches that bruised my back, the stale air that smelled of sweat and old paper, the distant echo of shoes on tile floors. But most of all, I hated the way David and Samantha sat together at their table, perfectly composed, their bodies aligned like a united front. He wore tailored suits now, crisp and clean, as if he had reinvented himself into a respectable father. She was polished, her blonde hair gleaming, her smile restrained, as though she were auditioning for sainthood. And me, I was the spectacle. The woman with trembling hands, with raw eyes from sleepless nights, with clothes that never seemed as crisp, hair that never seemed as perfect. I could feel the unspoken narrative swirling in the judge's gaze, the attorney's whispers. Rachel is unraveling. Rachel is desperate. Rachel is unfit. But I knew the truth, and I had no choice but to lay it bare, no matter how much it cost me. The custody hearing began with the expected formalities. David's attorney painted me as unstable, a woman whose medical issues and emotional volatility made her dangerous to her children. He cited my paranoid delusions, the so-called accusations of abduction and brainwashing. He even played recordings of me screaming into the phone at David, my words ragged, desperate, broken. "Is this the voice of a fit mother?" the attorney demanded, his tone dripping with disdain. I wanted to scream that the voice they heard was a woman in grief, a mother robbed, a human being pushed past the breaking point. But instead, I sat silent, my nails carving crescents into my palms under the table. Then, it was my turn. Angela, my lawyer, rose and called me to the stand. My legs felt like stone as I walked, each step echoing in the cavernous room. When I sat, I saw my daughters in the corner with their court-appointed advocate. Mia's face was pale, unreadable. Claire avoided my eyes. Sophie twisted her fingers in her lap, her gaze fixed on the floor. I swallowed hard. Then I began. I told them everything. How the call came while I was in the hospital, Samantha's voice taunting me, telling me my children were gone. How David had threatened to strip me of my rights. How he used my illness as ammunition. I described the sleepless nights, the unanswered calls, the venomous messages. But it wasn't enough. I knew it wasn't enough, so I went further. I told the court what no mother should ever have to say. That David and Samantha poisoned my daughters with lies about me. That they claimed I was weak, selfish, even promiscuous. That Samantha told them I had other men while David worked. That they whispered about my body, my medical procedures, my private life, all twisted into weapons. My voice cracked as I revealed the most humiliating detail. That Samantha had mocked me to my daughters, telling them David had left me because I couldn't satisfy him. That she had described intimate details of their affair to them, painting herself as the woman who had saved their father from a loveless marriage. The courtroom gasped. The judge's gavel struck wood. David's attorney objected furiously, claiming irrelevance. But the damage was done, because my daughters looked up at me for the first time in months. Shock flickered across their faces. Confusion, maybe even doubt. Samantha shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her smile cracking for the first time. Angela pressed the advantage. She introduced evidence, texts, voicemails Samantha had stupidly left behind, filled with profanity and threats. One voicemail played aloud in the courtroom. "You'll never see them again, Rachel. They're mine now. They don't even miss you. You were never a real mother." The room fell silent. Even the judge leaned forward, his expression tight. David's mask slipped. His jaw clenched, his eyes flickered with rage. For a moment, he wasn't the polished father, the composed man. He was the man I knew, the manipulator, the abuser, the liar. When cross-examination came, Samantha was called to the stand. Watching her walk across the courtroom felt surreal, like facing a ghost that had stolen my life. She sat with perfect posture, her hands folded, her voice calm. "I love those girls," she said smoothly. "They see me as their mother now. Rachel was never there. She was sick, unstable, always dramatic. The girls were scared of her. They came to me for comfort. Her lies poured like honey, sweet and poisonous." But Angela pounced, playing another voicemail where Samantha called me a pathetic bitch and told me to rot alone. Samantha's composure cracked, her cheeks flushing. For the first time, the courtroom saw her venom. But still, the damage lingered, because when the judge looked at my daughters, their faces were conflicted. Torn. They had heard lies for so long that the truth now felt jagged, uncertain. After hours of testimony, the judge adjourned for the day. My body trembled with exhaustion, my mind spinning. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Outside the courthouse, Samantha cornered me. Her smile was gone, replaced with something sharper. "You think you won something in there?" she hissed. "You think one voicemail will undo 2 years of me being their mother? They love me now. They call me Mom. You're just a ghost haunting them." I stared into her eyes, fury burning through my veins. "You'll never erase me," I said. "I carried them, I raised them, I am their mother. And no matter what lies you tell, no matter how many nights you tuck them in, their blood is mine. And they will remember." She sneered, stepping closer. "By the time they remember, it'll be too late." For the first time, I wanted to hit her, to feel my fist connect with her smug face. But I didn't. Because she wanted that. She wanted me to explode, to hand her the proof she needed. Instead, I turned and walked away, my legs shaking, my hands trembling with rage I swallowed whole. The final hearing came weeks later. The courtroom was packed, tension thick as smoke. The judge spoke for nearly an hour, outlining evidence, testimony, the psychologist's reports, the children's statements. My stomach twisted with every word. In the end, he did not give me full custody, but he did not give David and Samantha total victory either. He granted joint custody, with expanded visitation for me, mandatory therapy for the girls, and a review scheduled in 6 months. It was not the triumph I dreamed of, but it was a crack in the walls they built. That evening I saw my daughters again, not in a sterile office but in my own home. They walked in hesitantly, their eyes wary, their bodies stiff. I cooked their favorite meal, macaroni and cheese, though they barely touched it. When bedtime came, I tucked Sophie in, placing the stuffed bunny beside her. She looked at me for a long moment, then whispered, almost too quiet to hear, "Good night, Mom." Tears burned my eyes. Mia and Claire stayed distant, their walls high, their trust fractured. But Sophie's whisper was enough to keep me breathing, enough to remind me the bond wasn't broken. It was buried, waiting. As I sat in the dark that night, I realized this battle wasn't over. It might never be over. David and Samantha would keep fighting, keep twisting, keep trying to erase me. But I had one thing they would never understand. I am their mother, and I will never stop fighting, even if it takes the rest of my life.